Greetings and salutations. This is the first video in a sort of mini-series, an idea I've been playing around with. I'm going to talk about the Avenger movie and the films that led up to it, the pre-Avenger films. The Iron Man, Thor, Hulk, and probably not Captain America just doesn't seem to my type of film. Plus, everything I've seen about it just isn't of any interest to me. So, where do we get off? Get off to starting then. We start with Iron Man from 2008. The one that started it all. The comic book movie that I couldn't quite understand how could work. Seeing how much effort there need to be put into special effects and all that lot. This being the first comic book movie I really sought out since the Hellboy movie. And I think that one came first. No, I definitely saw the Hellboy movie first, anyway. Let's get things off to the point, shall we? Robert Downey Jr. plays Tony Stark, and bloody hell, he makes a brilliant Tony Stark. Albeit my experience with Iron Man mostly dates back to the 90s series, and more recently the series that came after this film, Iron Man Armored Adventures. Let's not talk about that one, shall we? This, unfortunately, is a origin story like so many comic book movies before. But thankfully, this was near the beginning of it before origin stories just became tiresome. So we got Tony Stark. He has everything. He has women. He has a fast car. He has this military weapon producing business. He has money. He has fame. He has a reputation, both good and bad. He's a womanizer. And unlike, I think, in the Octopus universe, he's not an alcoholic, but he does seem to be a thrill seeker. He seems to live for the moment to get most of it out of it. But of course, he producing military weapons. He doesn't care about if they're being misused. He basically put down, to sum up in the beginning of it, he produces the weapon you only need to fire once. There are some problems with the film, to say the least. It still follows pretty much the origin story as such. The location has been changed to keep up with local times. His chief confidant, doer things, Jarvis. Jarvis is not a human butler as in the comics, but rather a artificial intelligence who pretty much knows all of Tony's secrets because he is the one he goes to for making design. He uses his systems to make his designs, his records, all that. And the chief antagonist for this one, Obadiah Stane, who in this version of it is presented as Stark's mentor, an old friend and business partner of his father. The story goes on as this. Obadiah Stane has arranged for Stark to be kidnapped and killed so he can regain full control of Stark Industries. But that plan fails. Stark is captured, held for ransom, but at that moment he's injured, and so he needs a powerful magnet to keep shrapnel from going into his heart. And to improve the magnet, Tony Stark makes in a cave with a bucket of scraps as such an arc reactor, a specialty of him and his father, which he uses to power up the magnet to keep him alive, and along the way he builds himself the Iron Man Armor Mark I. A very basic, clunky thing, not the red and gold armor we come to expect, but it's silver, just basically metal, with the help of a scientist that was kidnapped and forced to work for these terrorists. In the end, the scientist, who in a bid to save his family, makes sure Stark escapes, sacrifices his own life. So gives Stark time to activate the armor and get free. And that he does. Stark takes out a lot of people and escapes, launching himself into the sky with a jetpack built into the armor, I think. And Kane's out of crash and the Mark I is totaled. And then he returns to America after being rescued. James Rhodes is his friend and liaison with the military. But the one problem with this, I suppose every other incarnation of him, including Iron Man 2, is he's too much of a pushover. He's there supposed to keep Stark on the straight and narrow. But yet, he just gets away with damn near anything. And then there's Pepper Potts, oh god. Back to the wiki, who is his personal assistant and throughout the film, budding love interest that's building ever since he returns from being kidnapped. Little definition of Pepper Potts, she is played by Gwyneth Paltrow, who, according to the wiki, asked Marvel to send her any comics that they would consider relevant to her undertaking the character, which led in turn to make her very smart, level-headed, and grounded. And added, it says here, she would like to add the fact that their sexuality that's not blatant. It is with Rhodey and Pepper who oversees Stark's journey from there. He's had his revelation. He's had the change of heart. He's woken up to the world because he saw Stark Industries weapons in the hands of these terrorists. And he wants to make a difference. And he starts developing the Mark II. And this is where the film assigns, this is a journey not only for the development of the Mark II armor, which led on to the Mark III, but the development of Stark. From just this playboy who just cared about him, showing off being greatest thing ever, to someone who's taking stock, who's now taking responsibility. And this causes trouble with Pepper because Stark remarks when she finds out, I am starting to do something worthwhile, or something on those lines, and she's remarking, is it worth killing yourself over? Rhodes also learns of it when, in a test flight, the Mark III armor, I believe, after the testing period, that now sports the traditional red and gold colour scheme, has a run-in with a couple of military aircraft. And he basically calls Rhodey to basically call them off. It's him. Which leads to an accident, which leaves one of the plane's wings being torn off, and Tony has to go save the pilot. And all the while, since then, Obadiah is plotting. He is suspecting that Stark is building a new arc reactor, powered weapons, and he acquires the Mark I Iron Man armor from the very people that he escaped from, the ones he hired to take him out. And just to clean shop, he makes sure no one from that camp leaves alive. And thus he begins his own little projects of developing the Ironmonger based upon the Mark I's design. This, of course, while they're developing the armor, they can't develop the power source. They are not Tony Stark. This leads to Obadiah making his mark against Stark. He shuts him down, and he takes the arc reactor out of his chest that was keeping him alive. This is the second reactor that he developed, because the first one wasn't too efficient being built in a cave. This one was built in his own personal factory. And with it, he powers up the Ironmonger. And since Pepper has since learned that Obadiah has been up to no good, she's gone to the police. She's gone to a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, a rather familiar one throughout the series. Phil Carson. He's there trying to get to Stark. And by the end of it, he introduces his organization. Oh, we're S.H.I.E.L.D. Just call us S.H.I.E.L.D. He's just trying to make that connection. And unlike in number 2, where the S.H.I.E.L.D. connection just kind of screws things up, this is a fine one. It's an introduction to both the character and S.H.I.E.L.D. The film develops into a battle between Stark, who's regained using his old arc reactor after nearly dying, which leaves him at a disadvantage because he was never intended to power the Mark III armor against the fully powered and superior Ironmonger. The Ironmonger was developed as a weapon. Stark developed the Iron Man armor as something else, the shield as such. And it's only through Pepper's help that Obadiah is finally defeated. Unfortunately, taking along with the lines from the Spider-Man movies that every time a villain is defeated, they're killed. Obadiah is killed, and the Ironmonger is wrecked in the process. And it ends with a shield covering those events up, giving him an alibi, and basically Tony goes before the press, and someone going, "Oh, a bodyguard showing up. This rather far-fetched," and Tony would just remarks, "I am Iron Man." But for those who actually bother to wait to the end of the credits, we get our first view of Samuel L. Jackson as Nick Fury. I believe his first appearance, or at least in the Marvel films, which overall led to his visual look being translated into the Ultimate Marvel Universe, I believe. Actually, yes it is, it says it right here in the wiki. I liked this film. This film had heart, and the formula such will be reappearing in 4 later on, in 3 years' time when that's released. What we have here is someone who thinks they have it all, who isn't worried about the consequences, and then they lose everything in a moment. Stark is kidnapped, he's fatally wounded. He has no choice but work on this weapon these terrorists want. But what happens? He turns it around, he makes the Mark I armor. He starts taking account of things, he starts being responsible. He has moved away from basically being a warmonger. And as ever, he still has his playboy charm about him. But as I say, he's becoming more responsible. It's a good film. For character and a fairly decent story. The effects are nice as well. Even though you can't escape the CGI, but at least it's not overdone. I like it. It's a good film in my books. And now, to call an end to this one now, I'll move on to the next one.